Hello guys, Jesse Kotton here, and we just got top 8 at YCS Vancouver. For those that don't know Canada, obviously where I'm from, so I want to defend the homeland. So I always want to do well at these events, and I've tried for a long time, and I've topped every single Canadian YCS since 2015. But there's another streak, and that is, for one, I was the last YCS Vancouver champion, and that also I've won the first NAYCS the last 2 years. So keeping that streak alive would have been great, and while I was close, wasn't able to close out. That being said, this is also the highest placing Draco Tail deck, I believe. I was very happy how the deck played. It's a lot of fun, and you're looking for something more old school Yu-Gi-Oh, but still very, very powerful. This is it. Really cool deck. The new prizes, which, great. So I'm gonna be a little more in depth with the cards here. So Lucas, okay, so I guess the thing with the Draco Tails, this is a fusion based deck. All of your monsters will have an effect when they're fused away to set from deck a Draco Tail spell trap. Some will have a little bonus effects up top. The dragons will, the spellcasters won't. So it's half and half. Yeah, so Lucius has that effect like the rest of them do. Lucius is one of the spellcasters, so it doesn't have a bonus effect. On its summon, it stratos for a Draco Tail monster. This deck has a little bit of a problem with not enough monsters in the deck, so anything that gets you somewhat started, you play 3 of. 3/5 mana, which is the most broken one. Also spellcaster, so no bonus effect when it fuses, but still searches a Draco Tail. This one is quick effect from the main phase, discard it to fusion summon a spellcaster or dragon. So you can actually do stuff like Winda, and like some other cool cards I play. I don't play Winda, but we'll get to that soon. Malulu, so this one is a dragon. Its effect, extra effect when fused away, is after you search, you can negate the effect of one face-up monster your opponent controls. I think it's face-up. Why do you negate it face down? Anyways, yeah, so it negates. Important to note the bonus effects of all 3 of the dragons do not target, which helps you a lot when you're breaking fields and through stuff. And it makes it so that, yes, Vanquish Soul can be a little hard. It's still not the end of the world. They can bounce back stuff. Its other effect is that during the main phase, quick effect, you can fusion summon a Draco Tail monster and then locks you into fusions. So it's like Cartesia. However, it will lock you into fusions, which does matter. And it's only Draco Tail cards, which, while not the biggest deal, can be important. Still, it's very good. It doesn't have to use itself as material, but it can, and you will decide what you do. Obviously, it may seem good to use fusion material for that you search. When you have enough searches, you'll instead want to keep enough field, that way you can use it as disruption to the opponent's turn. Next is 3 Draco Tail Pan. I'm not sure if I should have played 3 of this card, but I was decently happy with it. And the OCG, it is normal to play 1 of this card. What it does, and it's high level, so obviously it looks bricky, is that its bonus effect when it's fused with is after you search, you destroy a monster your opponent controls. Obviously, you can see that's very good. It's a lot of free value and great for breaking fields and preventing fields. And then when in the graveyard and one of your Draco Tail, or sorry, any of your fusions is destroyed, you put at the bottom of the deck to revive a non-fusion Draco Tail from your grave. So ideally, you're going to be reviving your fusion summon, the Malulu, or Lucius. So the reason people don't always play 3 of this card is it's obviously a brick. You need to be able to fuse it away for it to do anything. That being said, you have enough fusion cards, I think you should play it, as well as it makes the really powerful turn 1 play on your opponent's turn to find me to fuse away this, like crazy strong. So yeah, a lot of us you'll be able to play 1, but I went with 3 because I wanted to draw it, as well as you always want to end of it in hand, so not having to search it is nice, or if you get Ash and you're not able to search it, then higher chances of having 1. 1 Urgula, so this is the other one that people are playing 1 of, but in TCG more people are playing more of this card. I think that's honestly fine. I haven't decided which one I prefer more. This is better to play if you're getting like Holosuit on turn 0, like on your first turn. And it's better in some long games or versus DD Crow. This is better when you're going second. Urgula is a bonus effect is to pop spell or trap, which is good. The reason why it's in theory is better than Pan is its other effect in the grave is better, and that is you can put in the bottom of the deck to add back a spellcaster Draco Tail from your grave. So typically adding back 5 mana. So it's going to add back, you fuse it away, add it back, and then you get your quick fuse on the opponent's turn. So what's important with that is there's no real activation conditions. You can just fuse it away and then put it to the bottom. So sending this to grave is like a +3. Pop back row, set a card, and add this back, which is just nuts, obviously. Also what's important here is when your opponent is summoning monsters in your first turn, this card can fusion summon if your opponent controls a monster. It's like shit all fusion. So by saving this for later on in the turn, if you search it later on, then you can pop the card to summon. But if you set off this at the start of the turn and don't pop anything, draw once per turn, so you can't search again then pop. It's gone. So the Draco Tail monsters. This is none that I'm not playing. This deck doesn't have that many tools at its disposal, unfortunately. And the deck will reflect that. Spells are 3 key 2. So key 2 adds a Draco Tail from your hand, and then if your opponent controls a monster, you can fusion summon a spellcaster or a dragon using monsters from your hand or field. This does not lock you into anything. Neither does 5 mana, by the way, so these are when you go for link plays. Not always, but yeah. 3 Rahu, which is like branded fusion. You fusion summon a Draco Tail using using a guy from your deck, Draco Tail. So you can see why these is powerful. Now you could argue that because these are effects that search these, you don't need 3 of each of them. And I do side out of them sometimes because drawing spells in this deck can be bad, and we'll see why with the fusion monsters. But importantly, this deck doesn't have enough starters for you to just not play 3 of each of these. And into some fields, it can be really good going second. That being said, drawing these going first can be a little awkward because it means when you get searches off these, they do less. And I got Dracotail, Horn, and Flame. So these cards are actually just kind of crazy, and any deck in theory could run them. Flame targets a spell on the field, negates its effect, and then you can, so you don't have to do this, which is why it's generic, place a Dracotail from your graveyard or banish zone, bottom of your deck, and draw a card. So it's a negate, and then a draw, and recycle. And these recycle each other because this also has the same effect. Instead of negating a trap card, though, it bounces specifically an attack mode monster. So when you're playing against this deck, be careful. That being said, it can bounce your own cards as well, which comes up a lot because people will play around it. So just be very conscious of the fact that you'll oftentimes be bouncing your own card with this. And then again, you place one at the bottom of the deck to draw 1, so these will cycle each other in theory. And this is why people like to Ash your Bell, because if one is in the grave and you Ash the second one, then in theory they're cut off infinite loop, which isn't the main game plan of this deck, but it can be. Now, there's one different thing about my deck, and that is Yugioh. I don't know if I call this that different, but I'm in 2 Cartesians. So the reason is, one spellcaster synergizes with the Dracotails, someone being spellcasters. It gives you more ways to fuse, because too many times I would find myself not having a way to fuse, or only one and we get ashed and you just lose. So I need specifically 2 more cards to fuse, and that's what these are. And unlike something like King of the Swamp, you can be more flexible with how this is used. And if you don't fuse with this, which oftentimes you don't, you can then link it away or leave it on field to then fuse again on the opponent's turn. As well as in the end phase, when the fusion's in the grave, it adds itself back to hand, which can be more fusion fodder for later plays. So this card is very good. Why not 3? Because I needed enough hand traps in the deck to be good. And yeah, I do play 3rd in the side deck though. The rest of this deck is all hand traps. There's a fusion monster that returns cards from the graveyard of your hand. So hand traps in this deck are very potent because you can cycle them back, as well as your fusions can use any monsters. So hand traps just work great. This deck fell off in OCG because of the K9 cards being popular in Azuna, and it felt like, in general, you can't beat the VS deck, especially because the Ripper and Azuna are very powerful. There's 2 schools of thought, though, to handling that. You could either cut down on hand traps and graveyard effects and play like Yummy does, and some game states with breakers and stuff, or have a better engine yourself. Or you play so many hand traps, them negating with Ripper or having Azuna, you just overwhelm them. So it's the same way you played against Snake Eye, where to beat Appaloosa, you just literally push through the Appaloosa. And that's how I built this deck, which I think is not too common, and I'm not sure why. This deck cannot be built with breakers, because obviously the entire deck is graveyard effects and hand effects. So trying to avoid playing graveyard hand effects in this deck is just impossible. And ideally versus Ripper, you want to resolve one of 2 cards. It's the 5 mana to fuse, or the Nibiru. Nibiru was probably one of the best cards in my deck. This card is just crazy. You want to put the token in attack if you can, as long as it doesn't kill you. That way you can bounce it back with the trap. There are a lot of matchups you will Nibiru during your own turn. So you can bounce it back. You can nib and bounce it back and over again, or you kill them like nib, summon some fusions, trap, bounce their token, attack their game. Happens a lot as well. This card is the best card in the deck, it feels like. Next up, 6 Charmies. Help you go second and draw cards. And as I said, this deck does fuse going with dead monsters in hand, so drawing these dead is not a big deal. And in fact, sometimes you won't shotgun things, because if it never ends up being good, you'll just fuse with it. 3 Ash is obviously like the worst hand trap, but there are enough hands where this card can solo, and then looping Ash in simple game states is broken. But I never got to do that. 3 Veilers and then 2 Ogres. The reason behind these are the same. What I found is when they summon Ripper, you need a card that beats Ripper, because you need to force the negate on it, and then that way your 5 mana or Nib can resolve. And there's a couple cards that in theory can do this. So Ghost Mourner can do this. Ghost Reaper can hit Ripper. You could play the K9 package. I went for these because they were flexible. Veiler's the best to loop with, to add back to my hand, because he needs more than 1 in 1 turn. as well as it's just super flexible and it's a spellcaster, and it can still hit the Ripper. Not counting for Made with Lupus, but still. Ogre is because, even though Ogring Ripper's effect doesn't feel that good, it gets the negate off the field. Ironically, these combo well together, even if they have Lupus under it. Ogre Veiler eats both materials, then you can Veiler them, and they're just pretty much like you're Gamma-ing it, or Orange Lighting it. And it's just still force the Ripper, because even if they don't use the effects, then it's gone, and that's a good thing. That being said, this card is still worse. I just needed 2 hand traps, that's why I put it in there. Now, there's a couple things to note. For one, the other reason why this card is better than something like Ghost Mourner is this deck has a hard time against the Canine cards sometimes. So specifically what you want to look out for, or if you're playing against the deck as well, if you can summon a Canine Ripper that is untargetable on the Dracotail player's first turn with Azuna, it's really annoying, because that immediately beats the Femina, and that slows down my capacity a lot, as well as it gives you follow-up, and it's a hard time. So, or even ranking up at the Typhon's not bad either, because my Fusion's 3000, my main one. So Ogring not the Azuna, the Lupus is very powerful, which is the other reason why 2 is there. Now, the reason why there's no Canine cards in this deck is, yes, they are hand traps that would fit this deck's game plan, but it's not extra deck space. Extra deck space is not tight. It's actually because when you're building a deck, you want to think with purpose in mind. The purpose of each card in this deck is deliberate. The reason for these hand traps, remember I said, is I need them to beat Ripper. And while in theory Azuna does bait Ripper because you can make Nash Knight to steal it, it's also more fragile. Because if they have like a Dr. Madlow on field, or a Caesar on field, or any removal, their own Ghost Ogre, then your Azuna no longer checks the Ripper because their other card will beat the Ripper. And any astute player will know, like with Appaloosa, it's probably baits. They want to not negate the hand traps if they can, especially if they're low impact. In that case, Ripper accomplishes what you need to less often. It's also worse than a Yummy, for what it's worth. It is definitely way better in the mirror match, though. So I decided that, for that reason, there's no Canine cards. If I expected a lot more mirror matches, I'd probably side deck the Canine cards. And they're not terrible versus VS, but they didn't really do exactly what I wanted either, so that's why we ended up here. So Arthalion or Arthalion, honestly, I can't decide how to pronounce it. This is the best card in the deck, probably. It's nuts. So it's 1 Dracotail monster, and then as many monsters from your hand as you want, so you need minimum 1, obviously. At which point, on summon, target monsters in either player's field or graveyard, up to number of materials used from the hand specifically, and then return them to the hand. So this is how you want to loop back your own hand traps and fusion materials, as well as it can be used as disruption to bounce your opponent's monsters in field. Or grave, for whatever reason, sometimes can come up, although they never did for me. And then also, both Dracotail fusion monsters have an effect that while when 2 or more monsters are sent to the field to the grave at the same time from either player, you can revive the Dracotail, and they get banished afterwards. So while it's not huge, it gives you bodies to fuse with, as well as damage to kill them with, because that matters a lot. This deck can actually kill really easily, where most slower control decks cannot. 2 Golem sometimes one gets banished. So this one is Dracotail plus any monster in the hand, but it's just 1. This one is also lower level. You cannot cut easier for this one. This is Dragon Spellcaster that matters as well. So this one is definitely worse, but still important. When a Dracotail card effect is activated, you can target a card in the field and destroy it. Important to note, it says when. What that means is it has to chain itself directly in response to a Dracotail card. So if you are playing against this, and the opponent has the Dracotail effect activated, if you can chain any card in response to the Dracotail, this cannot work. So you need to make sure when you summon this, you have enough ways to force through a Dracotail effect. That way you can get the pop through. Sometimes not doable, but yeah, this card is flawed, though it is good still. Mysterion is in theory really important, and it existing is important for decks to play around, but it's not as good as it may seem. This requires a Dragon and Spellcaster. It's one of the 2 fusions that's going to matter for typing. This and Secretarion, the other one here, both have this weird effect that monsters lose 100 attack, or it loses 100 attack itself, every one of your banished cards. This matters because the Typhon, these are both 3k, so you can actually drop them below 3k, some game states. Anyways, why this card is important is if a monster is special summoned by its own effect, or summons another monster of the same type with a monster effect, you can target it, banish that monster, and then all monsters on the field of the same type. So versus a deck like Yummy or Malice, this can be an entire board wipe. Even if not, versus like an Azuna, it hits 1 monster. And for that, it is decent. Secretarion, in reality, is the better card, but this card is important in some matchups. It's the same attack debuff effect, the same materials. This is a floodgate effect that while it's in the field, your opponent cannot use the effects or activate the effects of any special summoned dragon or spellcaster monsters. It is important, but that floodgate effect doesn't screw over the mirror match entirely. because the graveyard effects like Malulu to negate and Pan to destroy still stop it. Its other effect, though, is actually more important, in my opinion, and that is once per turn, you can target a dragon and a spellcaster in your grave, put one at the bottom of the deck, and summon the other. So this can be used in a grind game, it can be used for lethal shots, it can be used to revive an effect you never got to summon. Like, say you had to normal summon Malulu or Cartesia, and then never got to summon this, but it's in the graveyard because you fused it away. Now you can revive it and you search off it. Very good card. Like I debated playing 2 almost. Vaudeo Regis. This card's cool. So this card requires a level 7 or higher dragon and a dragon fusion. And then main phase only quick effects. Target a monster as a card. One card that your opponent controls or in their grave, and then banish it. However, if you banished a card from the field, then you have to bounce back a dragon from your field to your hand. So yeah, but it's good for disrupting graves, which otherwise the deck doesn't have much of. And sometimes for field as well when you have a lot of ways to fusion summon, because you can fuse away this or 2 of these even easy. It has another effect that it can revive itself at the start of your opponent's battle phase. That it never come up for me, but yeah. Those are the fusions. Then I'm playing Typhon. Grind game, hand traps, makes sense. And Spirit Dies of Blue. So the reason to play this is Erratic Seal. If you can make Erratic Seal, this card is great because it obviously is a bounce. And special dragon from deck, you're going to summon Malulu, and Malulu lets you fuse, right? So it's obviously a lot of disruption. That being said, you don't always have enough dragons to make this. What you can do is if you started off with the Lucius, is you can link it off for Blue Eyes, it's a spellcaster, and now it's a dragon. And then you just throw it into this. It's the only reason you play it. I never did a one-soul tournament, but it's important to have as an option. Artemis, this card is the least important card of the deck. I almost wasn't playing. Actually, there's 2 that aren't that important. But this turns a spellcaster into a link, so you can make SP. Celine is also not very good. The idea here is if you know link fodder, this can get more than 6 counters, or 6 or more. You can start reviving on your turn and your opponent's turn, because people forget it's a quick effect. So you can revive Lucius on the opponent's turn, and yeah, more searches. Cross Shape's actually really important. So yeah, when you summon a fusion monster, or monster summons its own points 2 for points to fusion, or revive a monster in your grave, so you can revive one of your effects you haven't got to use this turn. And this is like how you can link into this, but it never comes up. Importantly, what happens sometimes is if you have one of these in your grave that can revive itself, you can link 2 for Cross Sheep, revive one of the fusions, and then this triggers to revive again, and it restarts your cycle even if your field is like Nib plus Fu loss, which I've done, right? So top deck Fu, oh, damn, I lose. Wait, never mind, normal Fu with link with Nib, make this, revive this. I'm good to go. An SP, obviously. Your fusions have very few lingering effects on field, so you don't need to keep them on field half the time. Okay, side deck. So I didn't main deck this card because of the Charmies to be too conflicting, even though in theory you can fuse away the dead ones. I thought about it, but it's okay. That being said, you need 6 cards to side out against any matchup any time for the Charmies. This comes in a lot of decks, and then Sunny's going second, this is still fine. The other cards that I put in going first are 2 Fenrirs and the 3rd Cartesia. So the idea is to have 6 going first cards in the deck. This fills the role for most matchups. 3rd Cartesia because it's really good going first. You need some more consistency. I left me 2 spots left. I decided Fenrir because Fenrir is good into Retaliating Sea, which is a problem for this deck, even though I didn't have it happen to me once. As well as Fenrir gets you another copy itself to fuse away. Also importantly versus Yummy, that deck isn't very good against strong attack monsters that don't start a chain, and Fenrir summoning attacking is very good. That can then later hit the field spell, which will hurt their grind game. So Fenrir is super solid, always going first, put this in, and some matchups going second. Well, you don't put this in going second all the time. Some people main deck this card, and it's not terrible, but again, the focus of the deck is hand trap based, which is why it's only going first in most matchups. Lancia, you're going to play versus Malice. And this would go in instead of Drolls against Malice going first, obviously. And remember, because you can cycle back your hand traps infinitely, if you see Lancia once, you win the game versus Malice, because you just loop it, even if you can't kill them. Then there's 3 Ghost Spells. So I needed something for the mirror match side of the Charmies Ogres for, because they're a little weird. You can win a grind game easily by cutting off the traps. They can't cycle infinitely anymore, because these do put in the bottom of the deck. They are weak to Bell, as well as they are good versus Yummy and hitting the synchros. So yeah, that means fine. Lastly, different Phantasmes. I needed to side out some stuff. I wanted some more hand traps versus Vanquish Soul and Yummy. This is very good with Yummy in general. And the Vanquish Soul, it's not great because they don't always summon rocks, but I put it in because it pairs well with all the hand traps, force them to weird game states to make rocks, and this card is fantastic. It's also a dragon, importantly, so you can fuse some nice stuff with it. And yeah, and ideally what I'm doing versus the Draco Tail deck, or the Vanquish Soul deck, is siding down on some of the spells, because you want to search them, not really draw them. And when you're drawing off Charmies and Phantasmes, you don't want to duplicate, and I side up this. I usually keep this in because if you're able to fuse on their first turn, this is when they get a spell, so when they get a rank up spell, which is important. where this is too easy to play around because I can put stuff in defense mode. And then you should never need both traps. You could argue to play none, but I do like having the one trap just for a backswing turn. And same versus Yummy, because this card hits the Yummy Surprise or Field Spell. This card Loki ended up being better than this one. That is the idea, though, behind this deck. I was really happy with it, and I know this may seem like a simple solution-style deck, but I was happy with it. Now, one last thing to promote. You may have noticed, between my main side, I play 0 spells or traps, unless for the archetype ones, including Prosperity. There's no fusion deployments for Kotton either, no branded fusions. The reason is rather simple. You need monsters in hand to fuse for these. Oftentimes, you have to make the choice to fuse by a hand trap, and that's okay. But if you deny yourself that option, you will brick yourself a lot more often. And the deck can be bricky, but honestly, if you just don't play spells and traps in your deck, the bricking happens a lot less. But okay, guys, that was the deck. I'm super happy with it, and I really like this deck. I'm probably going to keep playing it for the foreseeable future. So if you guys have any suggestions as well, feel free to let me know. And we can engage in some civil discourse and discussions on how to build this deck, because I think it is far from solved just yet. And see you guys at the next YCS. Peace. All right, so real quick intervention before we head to the wrap-up. There is one thing I forgot to mention as far as deck choices. So another popular way of playing this deck is with Shaddoll cards. The deck can fuse with just about anything, any monster in hand. So any graveyard effect is, in theory, valuable, as you can put it in grave very easily. So even something like Keldo and Medora can be useful. Now, to some extent, these are win more, because the idea is to summon it during your opponent's first turn with 5 mana. You should already be doing really well if you have that set up, and you don't need more on top of that. The other problem is Winda, but Winda's not particularly good into any deck right now, so I didn't feel like it was really that special. Now, Shaddolls are very simple value. Shaddoll Be Strong is very good. Shaddoll Dragon Pop Back Row, which is solid. Hedgehogging another Shaddoll. And then obviously you can add them back off Arthaline, giving you more fusion material. However, these cards are all just worse than resolving a Draco Tail effect. So playing more Panzer Urglas, for example, they are just less value. And the thing is, you could just be playing more of those, but you don't, right? You're going to kind of face a position, right, where what do you do? How do you find space with the Shaddoll cards? Because originally they were in my deck. You have to make space either by removing some sort of Dracotail cards, Cartesias, which are engine because they provide fusion summoning, or taking on hand traps. And this is where it's important to deck build with purpose, right? So again, it's understanding this deck's strengths, its weaknesses, and what I'm looking for in my extra card slots to finish the deck. So I'm looking for cards to help with beating Ripper, going second, and the Shaddolls don't help that. And that's why I end up focusing more on hand traps instead. Or my other weakness is bricking. So I need cards that get me fusion summoning, or not get advantage off fusion summons, so Cartesia. And that's why I had about 4 loose spots in the deck that ended up going to 2 Ogres and 2 Cartesias, because those were the problems I found, and that would make my deck balance out the way I wanted. And you could argue to play Shaddoll cards for the side deck to make your deck greedier going first, make the end board more powerful, which sometimes it is lacking. But I feel like other cards do that better, like Fenrir and more Cartesias. So that is why there was no...
Hi, Jesse.
Hello, Adam. Yes. Fucker woke me up at 2 in the morning, his bachelor party, just to see if I'd answer, showing off to his friends. Anyways, yes, that is why there's no Shaddoll cards in there. I think it's not the crazy hot take, but I do think it kind of should be cemented that, at least for this time and place, Shaddolls are completely suboptimal and you should not be playing them. But you can play them in this deck because you do have some ways to fusion summon without locking yourself. And you can also just play the Fiends with the cards. And the reason to do that is to fix 2 problems. I did test this briefly at locals. For one, it gives you more engine cards. That way, if you get go first, you don't just brick and pass. You have things to do. Even if it's just pure Fiendsmith, that backed up with hand traps is fine. And then they also let you make Caesar before getting Retaliating Seed, so it beats that problem. That's decent, as well as it's just another engine in grind game mirror matches like the mirror, more pushes. So I ultimately felt like it was like fine, but it would have required extra deck spaces. It would have required a lot of side deck space as well, or main deck space, that ultimately I didn't feel was worth committing to. And again, going back to the philosophy of how the deck is built. This deck is super cool though. It's very flexible, and you can give a lot of different ways of building it, and I'm excited to see what everyone else has in mind. I guess before I send you guys to the original outro, shout out to Tier 0. I'm going to do a in-depth tournament report, so not just the deck profile, on that channel as well. So make sure you sub. With the code Jesse5, you're going to get 5% off. I'll see you guys all then.